Okay, so for the next session, we have an absolute superstar panel for you. When I first looked at some of the people in this session, I was really looking forward to hearing what they have to say, because there are so many different industries which are represented up here. I just wanted to also say, as there were so many questions for the last session, if there were any questions that anyone doesn't have, which they'd like to get answered, Karen and Nick will be over at the Brown Watch stand, which is stand 19. But for the next session, we are talking all about how to work smarter and not harder on your creator marketing campaigns. So I'd like to welcome to the stage our fantastic panel: Ruby, Head of Influencer Marketing at Pion; Tierney, Group Marketing Manager at Monzo; Michel, Digital Marketing Manager at Samsung; Michel, Strategic Lead at Pinterest; and Jenny, CEO at YMS.
Hello. Ooh. Thank you for lasting the post-lunch slump. I'm really excited for this panel to be speaking and learning all about the hottest tips and tricks in influencer marketing, hoping to learn something for myself. And I'll just kick off with an intro for myself and then the rest of the panel. So I'm Ruby Soave. I'm Head of Influencer Marketing at Pion. We manage influencer marketing campaigns with students and Gen Z for brands such as Monzo and Samsung. And I will hand over to you guys. Who are you and what do you do?
Shall I start?
Yes.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tierney. I am the Growth Marketing Manager or Growth Campaigns Manager at Monzo. Monzo are a UK bank, and our mission is to make money work for everybody. My role at Monzo is kind of planning campaigns across the board, so like omni-channel campaign planning, and one of those channels is influencer.
Hi everyone, I'm Michel. If you can't tell, I'm French, but I've been living here for the last 12 years in London. I started my career before Samsung in the lead gen space, so very specific, but moved then very quickly to the affiliate space, went agency side for 2 years, and then moved for almost 3 years now at Samsung. At Samsung, I'm working in the direct-to-consumer team, which I'm going to refer to DTC later, as the Senior Affiliate Marketing Manager looking after all our product range for the UK program. When I told my friends today that I will join the panel, they joked and they said, with your impressive 200 Instagram followers, what valuable insight can you bring today to the people? And I think what I replied to them is that for the last 2 years, we, in the DTC team, started to implement a lot of influence activity, gathered a lot of learnings, and I think one of our proudest moments was that last year we won a performance marketing award for one of our campaigns. So hopefully we're doing something right, and I can share some of my learnings today with everyone.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Pinchard with 2 Michels here, so you can call me Mish. I've been working at Pinterest for the past 7 years, wearing a few different hats. I'm strategic partner lead for content partnerships, and I've always worked across the organic side of the business, and so helping get content from creators, brands, publishers onto the platform, and helping creators understand how to monetize that content as well. Pinterest is, if you don't know it, of course, you've probably been familiar with it in some degree, but it's a huge platform. We've been around for over 15 years and having a real resurgence with Gen Z, which I can talk about more in a moment. But we're a real place for positivity, for people to find inspiration and to create a life that they love.
And my name is Tsai. I'm the founder and CEO of YMS. We are a precision analytics platform for influencer marketing. And our mission is to enable our brands. We work with the likes of Gucci, Hermes, Unilever, etc., to really bring the clarity and a bit of analytics to really help predict and optimize the business results as they build their influencer marketing and to build communities that is culturally relevant. So yeah, that's where we are. I'm really excited today to be with this esteemed panelist, and look forward to our discussion.
Amazing. Thank you so much, everybody. Would love to get straight into it. So let's just set the scene. What exactly does it mean to work smarter in the influencer marketing industry today? I realise it's quite a big topic. So any thoughts you'd like to share? Who wants to start? Go from you, this side.
Okay, I'm happy to go because I'm not one for awkward silences, so let's not have any. I love it. So for me, I love this topic, and the title of this panel, I think, is really just something I'm very passionate about. I think from all sides of the creator economy, from whether you're a marketer, which I assume many of you are in the room, whether you're a creator yourself or someone who's representing a brand or an agency, I think this is so important in the world that we're in, and as we've grown up, all of us, at whatever stage in your career or life you're at, grown up with digital and burnout. And there's a time and a place for every platform. But for me, I think it's really key to understand where your boundaries lie, because it's an industry and a whole economy that's based around just not really having those boundaries. It's quite borderless in that sense. And so I think working harder is really important and understanding where your levels are, because just working harder and harder and harder, you could just keep going forever. And so working smarter, understanding where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, where you can bring in agencies, where you can bring in other experts, whether you bring in creators to help you to make your work, whatever it is, really maximize, I think is really, really, really important for everyone's health and just for the industry in general, for people to play to their strengths. So it's a very general answer, but I think I feel very passionately about that, and I can go into more specifics later as well.
I might give it a go. I think in this world we live in, as Michel said, there's just so much that we can be doing. So really the way to enable you to work harder on your creator strategy is really to, one, have access to really great, unparalleled data sets and insights. Because this allow you to really be able to scan through any trends, any cultural white space that you may need to become a part of because it aligns with your value. Looking at influencers who are really going to be authentic for you to partner with, that are overlooked over time. And then I know AI is kind of a bit of a buzzword, but it can really help you identify and do things much more efficiently. So, for example, we looked at 20 billion pieces of content using image AI to be able to scan through. If you have like a hair care brand and want to identify influencer with curly hairs because it suits your product, like it can do that for you rather than having to look through that one by one. So I think there's a lot of things that technology and data can do that for you, and we should look to incorporate that in your creator strategy.
I think maybe just to add from a brand sort of hat, there are probably 4 points that I would think about. Is the first one is like set clear goals. What are your goals? What do you want to achieve? First of all, what do you want to start with, like creator activity? What does success look like? Are you thinking about maybe more the vanity metrics of impressions, reach, or do you want to talk about engagement, like traffic, sales, etc.? The second is ongoing learning. I think we at Samsung tested like the water for the first time in the DTC team, and we did a lot of things wrong. But I think it's just like learning ongoing. I have an example where we worked with an agency and they suggested this creator that was a bit goofy. We didn't feel like it was very brand related to our brand, and actually they became the best creator in the campaign. So I think it's just as well. The third point is relying on expert, collaborating with them as well. But at the end of the day, from a affiliate specific and brand side, you're potentially not the best place to make those calls. So just relying on like other teams and experts. And then the last one is a bit like Jenny, you said, is leveraging the technology that is available to you to make sure that you work harder, quicker. And there are like so many tools like to edit content, shoot content, and make sure that you can literally do it within a few seconds on your device. I think those are like the key 4 points that I would mention.
I feel like my answer is very much more concise. I feel like I should have maybe given this a bit more thought, but the way that I kind of interpreted that, again, from sort of a brand lens, I suppose, was, I'll touch on this a bit more as we kind of get into it, but very much the way that we approach ways of working and how to work with partners, influencers, creators is like I'm passing the mic to you. It's all about sort of enabling somebody else who is the expert to say what they want to say, and we're kind of partnering with them to facilitate that. But I feel like that helps the work really breathe on both the brand side and the partner side. So that's, yeah, very much how we approach it.
Thank you. Great answers from all of you. Digging a bit deeper, Jenny, into some of that data that you mentioned, we are all under pressure to make our money work harder and measure the effectiveness of our budgets. Can you share a bit more about metrics and which ones are important, especially, you know, how may they differ that you're using them for brand building versus ROI, etc.? Thank you.
Yeah, I think first things you really need to think about when it comes to selecting metrics is what Michel said, which is what is the objective of your influencer strategy and campaigns. So is it to increase your brand awareness? Is it to increase your share of voice, increase the size of your communities, brand loyalty, brand affinity, change your brand perception, or is it to drive traffic and sales? Because once you actually have a very clear view of your influencer strategy, then for each of the goals, you obviously have your corresponding KPIs and metrics, you know, everything from reach, impressions, share of voice, engagement on the quantitative side, and qualitatively, you know, you can look at measurements on the increase of brand affinity, sentiment, in changes of discussions, topics, alignment to the topics you wanted to be part of the conversation, and as well as all the way to, you know, any kind of brand safety, you know, topics you want to stay away from. So there's a lot of different metrics, and then once you kind of select the metrics, and the third step is to look at historical data, looking at, you know, how your influencer group has performing, and then work with, you know, analytics partners such as ourselves to basically help understand how you can predict and optimize the results. So that's what I would say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to add anything or move on? Okay, Tierney, one for you. How do you go about aligning your creator content objectives across organic versus paid media teams?
I love this question because this is very kind of close to my heart, and it's certainly the way that we've been able to really get a kind of influencer marketing strategy off the ground at Monzo. It's fairly new to us. I mean, influencer as a sphere is a pretty new venture for us in the marketing team at Monzo. But the way that we've been able to kind of invest more business resource into it, I suppose, is by streamlining those goals across teams. So I think we had kind of the brand organic team over here thinking, oh yeah, we want to partner with creators. We think it'd be great to sort of hear their take on how to manage money, how to deal with your finances. And then over this side, we had kind of the performance marketing team who thought, we want to do the same thing, but our KPIs and objectives will be slightly different. So I think that's quite common, and certainly in other businesses that I've worked in, having growth teams and brand teams, they're not always kind of talking to each other day in, day out, and their strategy planning can be quite separate. So the way that we went about it was to very much try and sync that up. So rather than having certain teams kind of, doing talent research and thinking, oh, these people are really excellent brand fit, we should reach out to them. And then these people going, oh, these guys have got excellent results, their engagement rates through the roof, let's get them on board. I think trying to find a common set of goals has been really impactful for us, because it's enabled us to just basically join forces. So that's really what I've been kind of working on, is to try and bring together those two sides of house, as it were, to try and find that commonality. And so you're trying to hit kind of campaign-oriented goals, as well as brand awareness and kind of brand perception goals at the same time. I mean, curiously, or maybe not curiously, we've actually found that when you are making assets, which maybe have like slightly more of a traditional brandy feel, they work really well for conversion when you run them. I think there's a lot more flexibility within that kind of polarity that we typically have between brand and growth. And so, yeah, that has been something. And I mean, ultimately, that's how people consume the content, right? Like, they don't care whether it was briefed in by the performance team or the brand team. A user just sees it appearing in their social feed, right? So driving that consistency in tone as well was really important, and I think quite pivotal in our strategy overall.
Thank you. Really, really interesting. And moving over to Pinterest, Mish. It's a huge topic for Gen Z at the moment, and they're really helping to push Pinterest to new heights. It's also your fastest growing audience with huge levels of engagements. And I'd really like to know, why is this happening? What reasons do you think are behind that?
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, Pinterest, fastest growing audience is Gen Z, but it's also over 40% of the monthly audience. So Gen Z over the recent years have been really flocking to Pinterest, and it's because of the positivity on the platform. Time and a place for every platform, but as I alluded to earlier, I think Gen Z are really looking for a safe space. They're looking for a quieter space than some of the other platforms can offer as well. And so Pinterest really provides that. We refer to ourselves as solo media rather than social media. And so it's really a personal experience. If you have used Pinterest, you will realize that you don't have to be connected to anyone on there in order to get the full experience of Pinterest. And so that peer pressure that Gen Z might face elsewhere is gone. Nowhere's perfect, but we really work hard on our policy and our features to avoid things like trolling. And because it's not such a social kind of platform, then we don't experience that kind of thing. So it's a quieter place, which can confuse people and has perhaps confused older generations. However, I think Gen Z really get it. They really come to Pinterest to understand who they are. They're able to tap into loads of different aesthetics, loads of different trends that are either a trend already or that are bubbling up or that they're going to make into a trend on Pinterest, but then take it to other platforms. And so you see Pinterest be kind of an incubator of trends, whether that's fashion, beauty, home. We see a lot of students who are doing up their, moving out to their first dorm room and come to Pinterest to start that life. And so it's really relevant for that audience. And then I think the inclusivity angle for us, Pinterest, our policy and our features, we really put a lot into like AI learning as well. We use a lot of AI learning in the background and have done for many years to inform the personalization of the Pinterest experience that you're seeing. And I think that really speaks to a lot of Gen Z, where they're able to see hairstyles, like Jen mentioned, like hairstyles. There's a refinement search tool on Pinterest so that if you have black hair, you don't have to put that as a search term in, you're able to fine tune that search and be able to see hairstyles that look like your hair. And same for body type, which is a recent thing that we've launched as well, a body type filter in the search so that you're able to see you on there. And so I think that personalization, that inclusivity angle has been something that's created a real safe space and creative space for Gen Z to really be them.
Thank you. Yeah, I know from the research we often do at Pion with Gen Z that inclusivity and positive representation on platforms is so important. And, I'm not saying it just because you're here, but Pinterest does do it the best. Another question for you. Another benefit is that your content is evergreen on the platform. So as a brand, creator or publisher, how can we use Pinterest to make our content work harder and for longer?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something that, again, I alluded to in my first answer, where Pinterest can help your content work harder for you, therefore working smarter for you. As you'll maybe have experienced Pinterest, it's a different pace. And that's something, again, that I think is really, really important to Gen Z and to others. It's really good for, in general, I think, mental health, where perhaps other platforms are super, super fast paced. So you can come to Pinterest in that sense. But I really think that it helps that Pinterest just allows you to just create that environment for you. And I really think that positivity really helps. What was the point in the brands and publishers as well? So I think if you're a brand and a publisher thinking about how that content can work for you, and it might be creator content or it might be brand created content too, and how that kind of content can work really hard for you. Imagine if you have, I'm going to use an example that's a creator example, but you can apply this to your brand, whoever you might be in the room. If you are a creator and you're shooting an outfit of the day look, and perhaps on other platforms you may put 1 to 3 pieces of relatively polished, depending on what your vibe is. It might still be lo-fi, but it's refined for that platform. Whereas on Pinterest, from that particular outfit, you will have had a ton of B-roll footage as well that you took from that shoot, whether you're photographing yourself in your bedroom or whether you're a macro creator who has a photographer who's helping you, right? You've got a lot of footage, whether it's close-ups of that outfit, videos of different lengths. You wouldn't put all of that content on any other platform, and not that you should put it all on Pinterest, but you could put a lot more of that content from that one shoot, for that one outfit, that one look on Pinterest. And that content, you're not going to get the instant gratification for that content, but that content will continue to work longer and harder for you. So if you are putting perhaps your affiliate links in there, if you are curating a particular look with a brand, for organic or paid, then you can make that just live on in the Pinterest ecosystem. If you're at the forefront of a trend, you can imagine in that trend incubation, that rising up with a trend bubbling and then continuing to live on Pinterest, depending on that trend. If it's something like a seasonal moment, be that summer, Father's Day that's coming up, Pride, parades, marches that are coming up where people are looking to create an outfit, create a look, Christmas, anything that's coming up in the calendar, our users are planners, they're forward-looking, and so they're thinking about those moments generally a lot earlier on Pinterest and taking action on Pinterest around that content than they are on other platforms. And so your content can say, we'll take Christmas as a huge example. Your Christmas content could start going on the Pinterest platform now, and it would start bubbling up as people are looking for it, and the closer to the moment that you get, the more you're going to see that. So you can see that interaction starting much earlier on Pinterest, and therefore, if you have that content already, or you're able to repurpose content, working smarter, not harder, repurpose that content for Pinterest and see how that can drive results for you for much longer, and it could be month on month, year after year, and therefore you also need to just adjust your success measurement as well, and just think about things, whether maybe you're not measuring for a week, you're maybe measuring for a month for that success as well, which is also sometimes where that mindset is really important. If you're a marketer or a creator on Pinterest, publisher, brand, whoever you are, think about how you're measuring success, because that pace is just different, but ultimately you'll see a lot more results for a longer period of time from an individual piece of content that may be here and gone on another platform.
Thank you so much. Definitely the theme of working smarter. Moving on to the other niche, Samsung. You're using creators to push your campaigns at specific times of the year. Can you share how you're using students in particular as part of your campaigns and some of the results you've seen?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of our strategy is we pivoted from 2023, where we had an ongoing sort of campaign and throughout the entire year, where we didn't really, we saw some like cycles of like peaks and downs. So we shifted our strategy this year to focus on like student. It's like one of our biggest audience, and as well younger audience between 16 to 25. What we are doing now is shifting from focusing on key period. Usually loan drops is a big moment for students. The first loan drop drops in January, and then the second in September. So it aligns quite perfectly with the Samsung key moments as well, where in Q1 we have our flagship launch on smartphone. And as well, for September, we always focus on back to school as well, where the period is always longer, starting from like July to September. So we really operate only within a few months and have like live campaigns for a few months. But I think what we've seen is the results are much stronger. We don't have like those up and lows, and it really matches with the fact that students have more income to spend on the new tech in January, but as well, like back to school is such a key moment for students when they start researching, like they been accepted in university, they start researching the latest tech that will help them. So we always start with a bit more awareness activity in July, August, where we could talk about like the key features, why the products would help them, and then in September it's more of a traffic and revenue driving activity, because at the end of the day, DTC department is they care about pushing people to the Samsung.com website and being like the main point of contact with the audience to research like the products and as well buy them. So I think we exceeded like. With this new strategy, we exceeded all the KPIs and the benchmark that we set. So I think that's something that we're going to continue and potentially expand with new and other audiences. What we tried as well to do is I mentioned like brand awareness, but then as well capturing the demand. I think what we wanted to understand as well is work a bit harder as well on gathering insight. And I think what we started to do is brand survey, where essentially we asked before the campaign and after the campaign, like a sample of students, what would your next purchase be? Would you consider Samsung? And we've seen like quite like a uplift in performance where I don't have the percentage anymore in mind, but it was like a staggering increase. I think as well what we want to do potentially, and again it's work harder for the future, is how can we then retarget? So we want to see this as a full funnel activity where at the moment it's very much like siloed, like influencer and UGC activity, and then our classical affiliate activity. But how can we match both? And it's something that we're working on is how can we then, from someone that engaged, like liked or clicked or whatever on an influencer campaign, how can then we retarget them through like CRM with like a personalized offer? So if, for example, if you clicked on a laptop because you're looking for laptop for university, and you didn't end up purchasing, how can we retarget that person throughout the journey, maybe later in September with a personalized offer and say, here's, I don't know, an extra 10% discount. Why don't you purchase like the product that you were looking at? So it's really matching like the full funnel of the affiliate space. And then I think, I don't remember, I think you were mentioning, or I don't remember who in the panel, but I think is how can we repurpose the UGC content in other channels as well? So we spend so much time with the creators to validate the content and make sure that it's relevant as well with the audience. How can we then repurpose that in our social channels, on like our website, etc.? And I think that's like something that we started as well, and I think it resonates really well, where the content that has been produced, like UGC content, tends to resonate more with students than just a brand, a bit cold, more polished like piece of content. So that's something that has started, and I think we're going to continue.
Amazing, thank you so much, loads of insights there. Want to delve a little bit more into AI and its impact on the creator economy. Jenny and the rest of the panel, what opportunities and challenges do we think that AI poses for brands and creators?
I think, yeah, there's so much buzz about Gen AI. I think on the creator side, there's definitely certain challenges and opportunities, right? So I don't know if everybody have seen the last week or two ago when OpenAI has actually launched their the 4.0 version. There was then a dispute with Scarlett Johansson, basically disputing that the voice sounded very similar to hers. So there was be a lot of conversations, potentially with creators, to think about what is owned by the creators and what AI can kind of create to be closer to that. However, I think this technology is out there. So if you think of mobile phone, it basically turns everybody into a creator. And what Gen AI does is it basically turns all of us, creators included, into a producer. So you can start to produce very creative, wonderful content that delight people. There's actually already conversations on, even the Hollywood studios is actually considering that. So I think it will have a huge, huge impact on it. But on the flip side, I also wanted to kind of address, some of the interesting things that is happening on the consumer side. So, right now when you go on social media, you started to see these Gen AI content proliferating, right? Think Katy Perry in Met Gala, like think the Pope with, puff jacket and so on, right? So there's a lot of things that's proliferating. And I think rather than people thinking when they see something, rather than think, oh, is this real? They'll be like, this is probably in the future, this is probably, not real unless it is actually confirmed by a trusted sources. So I think influencer marketing will actually become even more important, where people will be going to trusted sources in order to understand whether something is purely there for entertainment or actually, a trusted source that they can rely upon. So I think that is certainly really, really interesting. And then the kind of final thing I wanted to address with AI, which is super interesting, is all the big tech is basically jostling to become the ultimate kind of AI assistant to help you with your kind of purchasing journey, right? So you have, Microsoft last week who just embedded AI chips in all the PCs that is launching, where if you're booking a trip to New York, you can basically, get the AI assistant to say, okay, these are all my criterias. What are the hotels and restaurants I should actually be going to? So that means that at the bottom funnel, if the big tech actually start to get involved and then the AI assistant is actually giving those recommendations, then what brands need to do is to actually start to become part of the discovery journey, so that I can, when I give my prompt to the AI assistant, I will have heard of the restaurants or the hotels through influencers, for example, and then I would discover, and then then I could actually specify that in my prompt. So I think there's a lot of changes in the way we interact with the internet that's going to be disrupted in the future. That's going to be huge. So. Hope that gives some...
Mind-blowing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I mean, to speak to AI, like on a practical level, working in a regulated industry, it's difficult, right? Like, I think sometimes it's kind of heralded as this, like, it's going to be the answer to all of your creative production problems. Like, I think ultimately, I mean, I'm sure there are other people in the room who have the same challenge. Working at a bank, everything that we put out from a marketing perspective has to be obviously checked, approved, subject to a number of different regulations, as it should be. We're dealing with people's money. At the end of the day, it's no kind of like laughing matter. So AI, I think, is a really interesting one when you are in a position like that, because yes, like Gen AI is amazing, and I'm super interested actually to see how it informs what creators do when they are coming up with kind of content ideas that they're going to put to brands when we're doing partnerships together, things like that. I'm super interested in that part of the process, but at kind of a more macro level, in terms of being able to like punch out a whole bunch of assets using Gen AI, it's not always so cut and dry, because it wouldn't, in that particular scenario for us, it maybe wouldn't work so well. Obviously, application for something like e-com maybe is a bit broader, but I mean, inevitably everybody has like their own kind of brand guidelines that they're going to have to sort of tweak when the AI spits out a bit of a strange picture. So yeah, I think it's sometimes a little bit like easy to get swept up in like the kind of, oh God, should I be using AI? Like, what should I do? How do we incorporate AI? But I just think it's not always as relevant for everybody as it seems, but there are obviously bits that anybody can kind of pick up and use.
I'd add just a little bit, if that's okay. And so I think we've mentioned it in a bunch of different ways, AI, how it powers personalization. I think that's a huge thing and a real positive of how there's going to be more content available that is personalized to people that perhaps wouldn't be made otherwise. I think that's amazing. It's such a huge, amazing world, and Jen talked brilliantly about it. And I think to build on some of Jen's points as well, the legislation and the safety, especially from a creator world and a marketing perspective, I think it's going to be really, really interesting to follow. There's a guy called Ian Hogarth who is leading the UK safety team around AI and is kind of being looked to globally. So it's amazing that that is happening in London. And I think that's something that's really interesting to look up and see what they come up with, what legislation comes out of that, because it's keeping up with the rate of it. And the investment in that side of things, I think, is going to be really powerful. And as marketers, to your point, you're held by brand guidelines and other guidelines, but I think also then the ethics side of things, and then the law, which I think once it eventually catches up with the rate that Gen AI is working at, is also going to be something to, just keep an eye on. And I think is really going to be valuable to keep the market regulated.
Thank you. I think we're opening up the floor in a minute or two. Is it now? Okay, fine. Let's open the floor for some questions then, please.
Hello. There we go. Hi. So just picking up on the generative AI stuff. Could you talk a little bit about? I mean, you briefly did. I work for a charity, and we're all about gathering stories, telling people stories, and we have a really key thing on ethical storytelling and so obviously generative AI opens up a real can of worms for that sort of stuff, because it's going to be producing things that actually aren't people's real stories. So How would you address that?
I mean, from our perspective, it depends on kind of what scale your business is at, I suppose, or what level you're trying to take things to. Our focus, particularly in our creator strategy, or where we're sort of doing content for social in general, is always around like relatability. So relatable money moments in this context. I think I agree with you that we would like struggle with the same thing, right? Like people's money is also a very personal topic, and we would never want to like come up with a fake scenario where this had happened. So my preference and recommendation, certainly if like I see the challenge when you're doing it at like a very extreme scale where you're going to need to kind of constantly churn out content, but my preference and recommendation would always be to maybe do a less amount, like choose quality over quantity, and really like explore and go deep in those like real life relevant personal stories, working with creators or working with customers or real people, over like trying to churn out a bunch of stuff just for the sake of it.
I think just to add as well, I totally agree with what you said. I think it's just like making sure that you start small, but then and it's a bit tedious like process at the beginning, but until you get to learn and like that the Gen AI get more robust and more controlled like by policies, etc. I think it's just like making sure that you check the content with your brand team or whoever, like the PR or I don't want to use the word legal team, but that makes it a bit more difficult. But I think it's just making sure that there's a bit of a first like a control and it doesn't go too wrong or wrong at all. And I think it's just then like when after a few months like of testing and making sure that everything that is produced is like up to the standards of your business is then open up a bit more the gate. I think it's just trading with cautious, because there are like with the Gen AI there are lots of bias as well, where if you ask like I think we tested produce like an image of a doctor, the results that you get is very it's very strange, I would say, or very specific and that doesn't represent the truth. So I think it's because it's like Gen AI has been created by humans, there's still like some bias. So I think it's just trade with cautious, test small, and then scale up later on.
I'm happy to add in really quickly. I used to lead influencers at the Prince's Trust charity. I'd say that our users there were our most valuable influencers, and I would steer clear of doing anything that was fake or generative on that point. But you can use it in an interesting way. So there was an addiction charity in France who did it to prove a point that like not everything you see is real. So there's a way that you can have an impacting story, but I wouldn't make the story and try and make it look relatable or true, because that would undermine the charity brand.
Yeah, I think the final point really is just that your brand reputation and then the charity reputation is really important, is the most important thing really to protect. So to have the quality, and then Gen AI can come in maybe as part of the creative process, but not to generate the part and stay true and authentic. I think is really important.
Any more?
Thank you. I just had a question regarding like TikTok right now. They do AI creators within the app where they can like create the whole content with an AI character. What is your opinion about it? Does it give it an ick? Is something that we should like create it, like integrate it in our creator strategy, or just like run as far as we can from it?
I mean, I think you know what my answer would be. I think, like I say, like focusing on a small amount of partnerships that you can really build and nurture with people that really understand your brand, your audience finds super engaging, I think is a better place to start than trying to sort of roll something out at scale that is just sort of like leveraging a tool like that. Obviously, there are applications for that, and I think it, can be useful in certain scenarios. But again, like we have found, I think as well, like to kind of go back to what I was saying off the top, handing over the mic to a creator has always been the way that we've found success when working with influencers and creators and partners. So if you're it kind of strips away the ability to sort of give a person who could have had that opportunity to work with a brand, and you're sort of passing that on to a technology. I see that there are obviously applications and ways it can work, but I would always prefer to sort of partner and get somebody's real story and real insights into like their struggles with money. Like, how do you manage money? How do you split bills with friends? That's a really divisive one, surprisingly. But yeah, I would always say there's a balance to be struck, but I would favor kind of really trying to create relationships with influencers.
I think we have time for one more question.
Hello, just wanted to ask, working with influencers can be risky. How do you protect your brand? And how can you make sure, of course, it's very easy to track, maybe like views, impressions, clicks, but how do you protect your brand narrative when working with influencers?
I can start. I think that's definitely the answer, like the question that we had when we started. I think it's whenever we run a campaign, and that is UGC like content, we just ask for like approval. It doesn't resonate with every creator because they always say I need to have my own tone of voice and like my own style, etc. So we always tend to accept like their content because they know their audience, they know their style better than us. But then on the other hand, you need to make sure that it's brand safe, it's aligned with your image. And I used the example earlier where where we had like a creator. We were convinced by this agency, please use this creator. They performed so well, and we were like, their style is weird, it's goofy, it's making jokes, a bit almost of joking about like the Samsung brand, etc. And we had to convince the brand team to go with it and just trust the agency that pushed that creator forward. And they were the best creator at the end. They had the best like performance. So I think it's a fine balance exercise of trust the creators, but with a certain level of control so that it doesn't go rogue and damage the brand. So that's my answer, I would say, hopefully.
I would agree with that. I think, again, I keep talking about how obviously working in a regulated industry, there are a number of things that you have to make sure you're hitting off with content. So we do have like a very robust internal review process that we absolutely make sure that any content is approved via. So I think there's a lot you can do up front when you're briefing a creator or an influencer partner, being very clear about like brand mandatories and the things that you absolutely cannot say. So I think just getting that in up front is helpful and like helps set the expectation on both sides. I think, yeah, the brand portion is difficult because it's more subjective, right? But I think something that's always worked well for us is partnering with people who actually genuinely love and use the product. So we do find that when the influencer partners that we work with genuinely do bank with Monzo and have banked with Monzo for a number of years even, like their experience that they're able to share is so much richer and more genuine, and therefore kind of helps really like showcase the brand in a way that feels much more kind of natural. So that could be an option to explore, like making sure you're really like, yes, influencers have an audience that they've built up, but if they're also customers and fans of your brand, amazing.
Thank you so much. That's all the time that we have. I just want to say thank you so much to our incredible panel and to our audience for the great questions. And yes, that's it. I'll see you for the next panel, so I'm not going anywhere. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.